I think we have a lot to learn from some of the indigenous cultures throughout the world who haven't necessarily lost that connection to nature, that connection to spirit and soul to the same extent that Western culture has. And that's why I love dipping back into Maya. They were a substantial civilization that had a very rich connection. Of course, they too experienced their losses. One interesting other thought that I just wanted to throw out there that kind of coincides to this is the idea of solar cycles. And I know Jung was very interested in solar flares and solar cycles. And it's just coincidentally that we're in a very large solar cycle 24 right now, that began January 8th, 2008, right around the time of the economic collapse. And it's going to peak in 2013. And this is also, according to the Vedic astrologers, we're approaching the Saturn-Rahu conjunction, which again comes at the beginning of 2013. And that we had that conjunction when we went into Iraq both times, when the French Revolution took place, when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I mean, all these kind of things. It's interesting how what we seem to be picking up individually that creates tremendous anxiety are these larger archetypal forces of time, forces of space, forces of nature that are moving, and we as little humans kind of get tossed around by these, and of course feel like we are powerless and don't know what to do. But if we truly settle into ourselves with our own courage and our own fortitude and our own sense of introversion and pondering, we will definitely make it through. And there will be a fifth world and perhaps a sixth world, and hopefully we live through many, many more worlds and many, many more ions as a human race.
I like the note that Nancy sounded, and I think it came from John, about courage, and that it takes courage to face the end of the world. If it is the end of the world, we should be prepared, but we should be prepared to die every day. I think we should, life is a preparation for death, and we should constantly be aware of that and prepared for it, inwardly and outwardly. So, and to have the courage to face endings and have the faith to look for new beginnings. So I think this theme is a very timely one. I think it's a very important one, and I think it can generate a kind of consciousness that we all realize we need. We need huge changes, personal and cultural levels. So.
Now, the reason I'm so interested in the Popol Vuh and Maya mythology is because I have discovered in this mythology an immensely rich way of thinking. I find it extremely valuable and quite surprised that we don't study it. It isn't talked about more. It isn't really included in discussions of mythology, and I think it should be. The first world was inhabited by animals that could only squawk, chatter, and roar. So they could not worship, so they were left to be eaten. The next slide. The next race consisted of mud people, but they melted with the rain. Next slide. The third were the wooden effigies, But they did not possess hearts or minds, and because they could not remember the gods, they could not worship properly. They were destroyed by a great flood. The final attempt was set in motion by two sets of hero twins who managed, through increasing consciousness, to defeat the powers of the underworld and from there to effect the transformation of the new god image, the maize god. It was then that humans capable of properly honoring their gods were created. They were made from the very life substance of the maize itself. We live in this fourth world, which began on August 11th, 3117 BC, with the transition to the fifth approaching on December 21st, 2012. On that day, the archetypal time bearer, 4 Aha 8 Kumku, will arrive and pass his burden onto 4 Aha 3 Kankin, like runners in a relay race.
If you look at that slide, you see, just read through it, younger generations sense innately that something is wrong. Disillusionment and unhappiness are far-reaching throughout the developed world, where almost everyone has got to the end of the benefits of economic growth. Modern-day four horsemen continue to ride roughshod over the people who can least afford it. Cities are converging when governments, religion, crises are converging when governments, religion, and mainstream economists have stalled. 23 international thinkers come together and break their silence. So you saw a piece of that on the YouTube segment that we just played. So we have shifted gears from ancient Mayan culture, mythological culture, to something very contemporary and very current that disturbs a lot of people, creates a lot of anxiety, and is very much a part of the transformation that's going on in the world today, in the real world that we live in. So if you're around the people who are in charge of some of these large institutions, as Karen is quite frequently in her consulting, and I am occasionally, you do get the sense of things being out of control, an amazing amount of deception and perversion of good intentions, absence of transparency, and the feeling that things are basically out of control and falling apart. Now that, I would say, is the feeling that one gets at the beginning of a major transformation, whether it's individual and personal, as we see with patients and analysis, or whether it's in family systems or cultural, larger cultural systems, and now we see it on a global scale. And so this, I think the feeling that something major is underway, a major type of transformation process, is affecting all of us, is very prevalent throughout the world today. Everybody has a bank account practically. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people do have bank accounts. A lot of people have credit cards. A lot of people have too much debt. They worry. They stay up at night wondering what's going to happen to their financial future. And so this is one aspect, an important aspect of the transformation. And out of this anxiety, we expect some change to come. And here in this picture, we see someone who's re-entering the world, like the dawning of a new day, a new sun. And I think stripped bare of what he had been before. You know, there is this stripping away, I think that Karen is alluding to, this stripping away. You had a very arresting phrase that you used, Nancy. The time to abandon our gods is not yet. We will know when is the time to abandon our gods, the Mayans said as they waited for the right date. When is the right time to abandon our gods? The gods, as you say, that are no longer symbols but have become signs. They're memorized, they're learned, but they don't carry any numinous power anymore. They don't orient us. They're not myths to live by. And maybe we have reached that time. Maybe that's where we are culturally. Time to abandon the old gods and let the new ones appear. The new emergence of a spirituality that can carry our humanity forward. Not to cut ourselves off from the tradition totally, but to advance into the future.
I also agree with what you say, that where you can be stripped of the old and then having this beautiful sensation of that the new is possible, and it's very hopeful, and along with you, John, as a sort of search for establishing a meaning in a very hopeful manner. And when an individual experiences this, in Sufi terminology, when you have that experiences within yourself, that is considered to be a sort of initiation. Because before you have that feeling, you can persuade yourself, and you can think you should attend to certain practices, or that you should move house, or you should split off, or you should have another job, but it won't work. It won't happen until that sort of igniting spirit within yourself knows that now I do it, and then sooner or later thereafter that will occur. That is an initiation in esoteric terms. And if you are then interested in cultivating a mystical attitude, or a sort of sense of connection with the spiritual reality, you will then, by sheer coincidence in most cases, in my experience, encounter someone who can be your teacher there. And then the second initiation, the second sort of initiations, not grade, but sort, has to do with the relationship with the guide and the disciple, which has which bears many similarities with the analytical relationship, in which components such as confiding trust, a sort of natural rapport, it's a long-term project, open-ended, and nobody really knows exactly how it works. That sort of relationship. Well, that's a reflection of the. In that there is the reflection in the other of that very quality in yourself that you have awakened to already, and you want it. You need to share that. Yeah. The third sort of initiations is when that has become so integrated and so assimilated that it's part and parcel of who you are. So that when you walk out in the world, you are the same. Again, what you said, John, you are the same, but you are not quite the same. There's something different.